You know how one of the joys of playing Rock Band is that it lets you feel like a rock star by imitating the motions of being a world-class guitarist, drummer, or singer without having any of the hard-won skill? Today's game, Card Shark, is like that, but for cheating at cards. Set in France in the middle of the 18th century, Card Shark tells the story of Eugene, a mute young man helping in his steward's bar. One night he meets a nobleman, the Comte de Saint-Germain.
Comte de Saint-Germain.
The Comte de Saint-Germain, who takes a liking to the boy. He offers to play cards with him that night, and by play cards, he really means use the boy to help him cheat. With some keen eyes and clever signaling, Eugene helps the Comte win. Perhaps too well. Accused of cheating, there's a struggle with a gun, and Eugene's caretaker is fatally wounded. With nowhere else to go and the cops on their way, Eugene joins the Comte on his journey across France. It turns out that while the Comte is probably a nobleman of some sort given his resources, connections, and education, he's primarily a professional liar, cheat, and scoundrel. He's on a quest to unearth a conspiracy deep in the heart of French nobility, and rigged card games and dangerous bets are his path to the answers he seeks. And Eugene, you, the player, are going to help him. And so begins both Eugene's and your education in the world of cheating at cards. One of the most impressive things in Card Shark is the sheer variety of cheating methodologies at play. For example, there are multiple ways that Eugene can observe cards and then signal to the Comte how he should play. In addition to the wine pouring trick, there's a trick that involves using a shiny tobacco box to view your cards as you deal them, and then signaling what you saw by grabbing the playing cards on your turn in different ways. At one point, Eugene even goes undercover as a countess, letting players preen themselves in the mirror to observe their opponent's cards and then signal the strongest suit through a fan. Meanwhile, other methods involve getting your hands dirty by manipulating the cards themselves. You learn various ways to identify where the cards are in a deck, mark cards as high or low value, manipulate cuts, falsify shuffles, swap decks, and palm cards only to insert them at key moments. It's easy to dismiss some of these techniques as simple quick-time events, and, in fairness, a handful of moves do try to approximate the dexterity of sleight of hand through simple timed button presses or analog stick swipes, but many more require you to really understand the mechanics of the cheating at play. It's not enough to find the cards that help the Comte win, you need to ensure they are dealt to him specifically by stacking the deck or ensuring false cuts in the right places. There's a lot of counting backwards or forwards to ensure you're moving the right cards to the right places, and you have to be ever aware of the order cards will be dealt versus where the Comte is sitting. All the while, you need to move quickly. The longer you take looking over a deck or hesitating before a deal, the more suspicious your opponents will grow, and you don't want them to accuse you of cheating. It might not end well. The result is something that isn't actually a card cheating simulator, but something that gives you the feeling of being a card cheat. Just as Guitar Hero lets those of us without calluses on our fingers live out the fantasy of playing Through the Fire and the Flames to a sold-out stadium, so too does Card Shark give those of us without the dexterity and poise to falsely shuffle a deck of cards in front of waiting and watchful players the ability to feel like we really got one over on philosophers, dukes, and generals. And like Guitar Hero, once you've got it down to muscle memory, it feels really good. Being able to casually stack a deck so that you're sure you're going to win and moving so smoothly that you don't raise so much as an eyebrow is surprisingly satisfying. If I had any complaints, it would be the lack of the ability to practice all of the various tricks whenever you wanted. As you approach the next town full of marks, the Comte will review the strategy he wishes to employ and let you practice to your heart's content. But once you're there, the game saves after every hand. So if you're halfway through an encounter and walk away from the game, and then come back a week later, it can be hard to remember the exact way you're supposed to pull off the cheat. And the only reminders are general hints, not a proper practice tool. This lack of a practice mode also makes the Three Stooges you play to grind for money, in case you lose too many hands in the main story missions, more difficult, as you get to pick how to swindle them, which is really fun, but you need to pull the cheat from memory, which is sometimes difficult. I'm not sure what to think of the save system generally, really. It saves after every hand so that each outcome has consequences. If you took too long, you're stuck with a more suspicious mark. If you screwed up and lost some money by losing a hand, that money is gone. It's meant to emulate the pressure of really being there and having to do it right with all eyes on you. Without it, there aren't any stakes. Nothing wagered, nothing gained, after all. But if you quit to the title as soon as you realize you goofed, but before the hand is finalized, you can just play that hand over. And this became my de facto way of practicing in a live fire environment, because it was often easier to just do a hand over and over and over until I remembered how to do the trick. Especially since the alternative was failing, having a dialogue where we are asked to leave, having to grind my lost cash up with the stooges that have infinite money, and then come back and try that trick again. I just didn't want to deal with that time sink, but really I should have, because it gives the game consequences. And being afraid of loss is a shame because sometimes in the story missions, the consequence of failure isn't just losing some cash and being asked to leave, but being killed, and then having to cheat Lady Death herself to regain your life. Gambling without stakes is meaningless, and the game tries hard to provide them, and I too often found it more convenient to rob myself of that joy. Whether that's on me or the game is anyone's guess. Card Shark is beautiful, its music is pleasant and suitably enlightenmenty, and it's surprisingly well written. I particularly love the detail in how, as the Count takes Eugene in and makes him take lessons in writing, the prose in his journal entries grows more refined with proper punctuation, grammar, capitalization, and an extended vocabulary. The story itself maybe takes a little too long to get moving because its opening chapter focuses more on explaining some base mechanics than throwing plot at you, but when you do start pulling at the threads of the 12 bottles of milk conspiracy, the story is surprisingly captivating, full of twists and turns and betrayals and corruption that goes all the way to the top of 18th century French society. If you ever wanted to learn how to cheat at cards but didn't like the idea of practicing your sleight of hand techniques for hours on end to do it, or if you just like the idea of tricking rich jerks out of their money and feeling like the smartest person in the room, Card Shark delivers in spades.